Welcome back. So, have you ever written a piece of code that just felt messy? Like a huge tangled chain of if-else statements? Or maybe you've had a loop that you desperately needed to stop or just skip one little part of at exactly the right moment? Well, today, we're going to clean all that up. We're going to learn how to take precise control of our programs with some of Go's most powerful features. All right, let's dive in.
Here's the game plan for today. We'll start by ditching those cluttered if statements for the much cleaner switch. Then, we'll check out a really powerful, Go-specific way to use it. After that, we're going to master our loops with break and continue. And of course, you'll get to test your new skills with a couple of exercises before we see how all this stuff actually applies in the real world.
First up, let's tackle a super common problem that can turn beautiful code into a bit of a nightmare, the dreaded if-else chain. We've all done it, writing one condition after another until our actual logic is buried under this mountain of code. It's time for a better way.
And here's the classic example, right? Checking the day of the week. We have an if for Monday, an else if for Tuesday, another for Wednesday. I mean, it works, sure. But just imagine adding all 7 days, plus maybe a default for the weekend. It gets long, it gets hard to read, and it's a real pain to change later on.
Now look at this. This is the solution, the switch statement. It's so much cleaner, right? So much more intuitive. Go just takes our day variable and matches it directly to the right case. Instantly, our code is more readable, it's easier to follow, and it's way simpler to maintain.
Now, here's a really important detail, especially if you're coming from a language like C++ or Java. See what's missing? There's no break keyword at the end of each case. And that's because in Go, the break is automatic. This is an absolutely fantastic design choice. It prevents a super common and frustrating bug called fall-through, where the code accidentally keeps running from one case into the next. Go just does the smart thing by default. So we've seen how switch can clean up our code by matching a single variable. But Go actually takes this a step further, with a feature that's even more powerful for handling complex conditions. It gives us an even cleaner alternative to those if statements.
This is a switch statement with a little twist. Notice there's no variable right after the switch keyword. Instead, each case is a full-blown Boolean condition. Go checks each case one by one from top to bottom, and the very first one that turns out to be true is the one that gets executed. Honestly, just think of it as a much cleaner, much more organized if-else chain.
And this example really shows off its power. We're figuring out a grade based on a score. Go just asks, is the score greater than or equal to 90? Nope. Okay, how about greater than or equal to 70? Yep. It runs that piece of code and it's done. This is a super clean and really common way to write this kind of logic in Go, and it's so much clearer than a bunch of nested if statements.
All right, we've totally upgraded our conditional logic. Now let's shift gears and talk about controlling the flow of our loops. First up is the break statement. You can think of this as your emergency exit.
It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. When your code hits a break statement, it immediately, and I mean immediately, exits the loop it's inside. The loop is finished, plain and simple. It just moves on to the very next line of code after the loop.
Let's look at it in action. This loop is supposed to count from 0 all the way to 9, but we've added a condition. If I equals 5, break. And as you can see from the output, the loop prints 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The moment I becomes 5, that break is triggered, and the loop just stops cold. It never even gets a chance to print 5.
So why is this so important? Well, you use break all the time in real code. Imagine you're sifting through millions of records looking for one specific email address. Once you find it, do you really want the loop to keep chugging along through the other millions of records? Of course not. You break out of it. You save time, you save resources.
Now for our second loop control tool, continue. If break is the stop button, think of continue as the skip button. It's another absolutely essential tool for fine-tuning how your loops behave.
So here's the key difference, and it's an important one. Break kicks you out of the loop completely. Continue, on the other hand, just says, hey, we're done with this particular round, and it immediately jumps to the start of the next one. Check out this example. The loop is counting from 0 to 4, but inside we have a condition. If I is 2, continue. So when that counter hits 2, the continue statement tells the loop, all right, we're done with this iteration. Skip everything else, and let's just start the next one. And that's why the printline function gets skipped, and the number 2 is totally missing from our output.
You'd use this anytime you want to filter stuff. For instance, say you're processing a list of numbers and you only care about the even ones.
you can just use continue to skip right over all the odd numbers. It is perfect for ignoring data that you don't need to do anything with.
Okay, theory is great, but the absolute best way to make this stuff stick is by actually doing it. So it's time for you to write some code. I've got 2 quick exercises for you. Go ahead and pause this explainer after each one and really give them a try.
For the first exercise, I want you to create a role variable. You can set it to a string like admin, user, or maybe guest. Then use a switch statement to check that role and print out a different permission message for each one.
Your goal is to get an output that looks something like this. If the role is admin, it should print admin access granted. And, something similar for the other roles you come up with. Go ahead, pause now, and try it out.
Ready for round 2? This one combines both of our new loop control tools. I want you to write a loop that counts from 1 to 10. Inside that loop, you need to use continue to skip printing the number 5, and then use break to stop the whole loop completely when the counter gets to 8.
If you get it right, this is the exact output you should see on your screen. Notice how 5 is totally skipped, and the loop stops before it ever even prints 8. Pause here and give it your best shot.
So, how'd you do? Whether you nailed it on the first try or had to poke around a bit, you just practiced a fundamental, crucial skill. So let's talk for a minute about why mastering this control flow stuff is so important for building professional software.
These aren't just academic exercises. Switch, break, and continue are literally the building blocks of intelligent programs. This is what powers the logic that validates API requests, manages user permissions, just like you did in the exercise, filters through massive data sets, processes financial transactions, and even controls what a character does next in a video game.
So, let's do a quick wrap-up. Today, you've added some serious tools to your Go toolkit. You now know how to use the super clean switch statement, how to use its more powerful form for complex logic, and how to precisely control your loops with the stop button, break, and the skip button, continue.
Mastering these fundamentals is what separates hobbyist coders from professional developers. If this explainer helped clear things up for you, do me a favor and hit that like button. And I genuinely love to see how you did on the exercises, so drop your results in the comments below. And of course, make sure you subscribe to Mira Developer so you don't miss out on the next one. And that brings us to the end. So I'll leave you with one last question. Now that you have these powerful new tools to direct the flow of your programs, what's the first thing you're going to build? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next explainer.